So, good morning, students. Today we shall discuss the poem Prospice, written by Robert Browning. Robert Browning belongs to Victorian period of English literature. Victorian period starts from 1837 to 1901. It was the period of science and prosperity. Science was dominating, and there was less faith. People evaluated everything in terms of money, and new discoveries were taking place. So, the poem Prospice, composed after the death of Mrs. Browning in 1861, is Browning's tribute to her memory. It was first published in the Atlantic Monthly in May 1864 and later in the same year in the Dramatic Personae. We may take this exquisite dramatic monologue and the epilogue to Asolando as the poet's testament to the world. Prospice is the Latin imperative, which means to look forward. It intimately reveals the poet's own creed, which not only rescues him from the agony, bereavement, but plucks the sting out of his mind and heart. Browning firmly believed in the mysterious working of providence. Since God cares for human beings and all his creation, the poet feels certain that he will be blessed with the reunion with his wife in heaven. Why should he then feel overwhelmed with grief? Edward Dowden, in his book Robert Browning, stresses the revelation of Browning's faith in this lyric and says that the poem is an act of the faith which comes through love. Mrs. Browning is symbolic both earthly and heavenly love. It is death, the adversary, that is confronted with the rare warmth of his love. Browning's poems on death possess the same note of confidence and faith in the future which other poems have. Death, according to him, is only one stage in the unbroken, immortal life of the soul. Browning was a firm believer in God, in the immortality of soul, and in heaven. In Prospice, the poet desires to be known like the heroes of the past who had willingly met death and had not shown the slightest feelings of nervousness at the time of death. He is hopeful that the agonies experienced by him at the time of death will soon disappear. He will reach the kingdom of God, where peace and joy will greet him. He will meet his wife and live there in eternal peace and happiness. This faith makes him bold enough to defy death like a brave man. The poet says that he wishes to die a heroic death. Fear death, no, let me taste the wall of it. Fear like my peers, the heroes of old, for sudden the worst turns the best to the brave. These lines reveal Robert Browning's optimistic philosophy. He wishes that he does not like to die the death of coward people. Brave people die one time only in their life. And Fear death to feel the fog in my throat, the mist in my face. When the snows begin and the blast denote, I am nearing the place. The power of the night, the praise of the storm, the post of the foe, where stands the ark fear in a visible form. Yet the strong man must go, for the journey is done and the summit attained, and the barriers fall, though a battle to fight before the guerdon be gained, the reward of it all. I was ever a fighter, so one fight more, the best and the last. I would hate that death bandaged my eyes and forbore and bade me creep past. No, let me taste the whole of it, fare like my peers, the heroes of old. Bear the burnt in a minute bay glad life's areas of pain, darkness, and cold. For sudden the worst turns the best to the brave, the black minute at end, and the element raise the afraid voice that rave, shall dwindle, shall blend, shall change, shall become first a piece of pain, then a light, then thy breast, O thy soul of my soul. I shall clasp thee again, and with God be the rest. The poem Prospice is a poem about death. Prospice is a Latin word meaning to look forward. It is an apt title for the poem, in which the poet is confident that he will conquer death and looks forward joyfully to his reunion with his dear wife. The black's minute at end shall change, shall become first a piece out of pain, then a light, then thy breast. O thy soul of my soul, I clasp thee again, and with God be the rest. The poem may be divided into two sections. In the first section of the poem, death, the adversary, is the subject of the first 16 lines of the poem. Browning wears the mask of a heroic combatant who fearlessly sets out on his last last journey. All the images of this section, the fog in my throat, the snow begin, the press of the storm, picturizes the difficulties in reaching the summit, where the adversary is to be encountered. Nothing can deter the protagonist from the heroic struggle. The poet looks forward to the kingdom of God. After death in this world, he is not at all afraid of death, but is willing to face like a brave fighter. The physical inconvenience at the time of death cannot terrify him. He is not cowed down by the fog, the mist, and the snow, which may come to oppress him at the time of death. He is ready to face all these rigorous like a brave man. He does not want to die like a coward. I was ever a fighter, so one fight more, the best and the last. I would hate death, bandaged my eyes and forbore, and bade me creep past. The second section is a comment on his ultimate victory over the forces of death. He gallant beating up against wind, fog, darkness, and cold enables him to see a light which unites him with his beloved and wife. Browning says he will fight death, for he has been a fighter throughout his life. I was ever a fighter, so one fight more, the best and the last, the best and the last. So this poem reveals that Browning was a man of optimistic philosophy. So either you take any of the poem like Grammarian Funeral and Del Sarto or My Last Ditches. So in most of his poem he shows his optimistic philosophy